Hi, this is Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome to Job Search Radio on webtalkradio.net. I start each show with a job search tip that I call the Job Search Insider. And today's tip, well, it's actually in the form of a story. You know, some years ago I ran the New York Marathon. It was a hot day, 78 degrees out, a lot hotter than I would have preferred running it in. And I trained with a friend and I ran with a friend, and we were amongst 20,000 people that day that were running the marathon in New York. And we lined up at the back of the pack. The cannon went off. The race had begun, and we really couldn't do much of anything for a while because there were so many people in front of us. We couldn't get going. And then with time, we eventually started running, and we looked around us, and there were people who were sprinting and weaving in and out of people and rushing. And, we came to realize as we saw them starting to walk at around the 2-mile mark and some at the 5-mile mark and others at the 10-mile mark of this 26-mile race, that they really had never trained or gotten any sort of coaching for that event. And the result of that wound up being that they risked injury. They certainly risked hurting themselves. They certainly didn't perform as well as they might have. And when I think about the lessons I learned that day, ill preparation can come out in job hunting as well. And as a result, people get forced into settling for a job that they prefer not taking because they missed out on opportunities that if they had known better early on, they could have actually gotten. It's not enough to have a positive attitude. Positive attitudes kind of get deflected or dismissed after you have a few experiences where you get conflicting information. That perfect resume you send out for a job that you think you're ideal for, that you never get a response to, or that great first interview, so you think that you don't get invited back for a second. So be aware that what you sometimes are going to need is advice and coaching from experts, just like athletes get. And I'm going to encourage you time and again to go out and get advice. That's what this show is about, and that's really what coaching is all about, and it can help you land your next job much more quickly. So that's my tip for this week. My guest on this week's show is Dr. Markel Quarles, who did his doctorate at the University of California at Santa Barbara and is Director of Career Services at Arkansas State University. He's worked in higher education for 15 years and served in counseling, teaching, and administrative roles. In addition to teaching undergraduate and graduate level courses, he's facilitated numerous workshops and trainings on topics including cross-generational management, career development, and academic success. Markel, welcome to Job Search Radio. It's great to have you on.
Thank you, Jeff. Glad to be here.
Terrific. So we're going to talk about the life of the student in transition. And maybe the best place to start off with is, what's it like for a student while they're in school? What's life like? What's their experiences like?
We often think that students have very unregimented lives when they get to college because oftentimes they're no longer living at home. But the truth of the matter is their lives are still pretty regimented. They go to class throughout the day. They mingle with friends in between classes. They're involved in clubs and activities. And so for the greater part of the day, their lives are pretty regimented.
You mean it's not like the movies where they're having a great time? It's not like Ferris Bueller and that kind of stuff?
I'd like to believe that mostly happens on the weekend. But during the typical weekday, their lives are pretty regimented between classes and their various activities.
And thus, the transition from the academic environment that they've known for 16 years of their life if they're graduating college or 12 years if they're graduating high school, that transition from school to the real world must be pretty shocking to them.
Most definitely. One of my colleagues says that the toughest year of college is the one following graduation. And that transition is extremely tough for them because now the world is an open book and there's a variety of ways that they can use their time and their expectations from their loved ones and ambiguity and questions from themselves in terms of what they should be doing next.
So you work in student services, and you're working with graduates and seeing them on the runway to launch. What's it like at the beginning when they graduate?
You know, I think there's a mix of emotions that happen. There's obviously great excitement. There's this big culminating effect of all these years of hard work are now coming to this point, and you're getting to celebrate that with family and friends and other loved ones. And also, too, there is a kind of a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach that I've got to be responsible now. I need to do something with my life. I just paid all this money for college or have taken out a large number of student loans and that I have to pay back, and now I need to show some return on my investment.
And these days, I got to believe that's a lot harder than it has been in previous years because the impact of the economy from 2008 on, at least in the U.S. it's been that way, and maybe in the rest of the world 2009 on, has been a lot harder for students to launch after they graduate. Is that what you see?
Most definitely. It really is. It is much tougher than before. We live in a global economy today, and back in, decades ago where it was good enough just to have a college degree and you can almost guarantee yourself a good paying job. And, those days are different now. The world is much more competitive and there are more people with college degrees than ever before.
So what tends to happen to students when they get out into the real world? How do they try to navigate at the beginning until maybe they get focused?
Well, I think a lot of times what ends up happening is, the recent graduate moves back home with their parents. And it's usually during that time with their parents, at least here in the United States, that I like to say that come to Jesus talk happens where, the parents are asking their son or daughter, what are you going to do with your life now? And if you're going to stay here, you have a specified amount of time and maybe you're being asked to contribute. And so there is kind of this kicking out of the nest situation that happens for those students, and it's oftentimes very, very difficult to figure out now what do I do.
And I think about, I don't know if you ever watched this series on HBO called Girls. Girls, I think, is one of those classic stories about the young post-college young woman who steps out into the real world without, she's got some radar and some antenna. And, there's a lot of fictional stuff in this, but, the work-related stuff where she has the expectation that her parents are going to keep funding her, that internship is going to instantly convert into a paying job, doesn't really seem to have a basis in reality. Is that what you tend to find with the students?
Most definitely. And sometimes, too, they realize that internship it results in a job maybe that they don't want. And so they ask themselves, is this really what I want to be doing?
So what should they be doing? What sort of steps might they be able to take in order to successfully transition from the collegiate environment or the academic environment in general into something, quote, in the real world?
Well, I would say definitely take advantage of your resources and your contacts while you're still at the university. Your career centers, your faculty advisors are invaluable resources to help make some of those connections. And while you have it's a relatively safe environment that's just ripe with opportunities. For example, your career center will put on career fairs where they bring companies to campus. Companies will also, in turn, reach out to the university and host information sessions and come to actually recruit students for employment opportunities. And a lot of students oftentimes let those opportunities pass by them. But I would definitely encourage people to take advantage of those things and start building their professional brand while they're in college. How
do you build a professional brand as a student?
I think it definitely requires a willingness to look into the mirror and to see who is it that I want to be, and to have an idea and develop a compass of where is it that I want to go. And so in developing a professional brand, I think it involves a combination of your self-awareness, your physical appearance. For example, do I get that tattoo or do I not in a visible place, or do I wear this particular hairstyle or do I not, and how does my appearance going to affect how the world around me views me? And so I think building that professional brand is those are important aspects of it. I think it also involves. Go right ahead.
Please continue, Markel.
I think it also involves, too, in general, just being aware of how does my presence affect the people around me. When I come into a room, do people want to engage with me? As a student, if I'm assigned on a project team, do people look forward to working with me because they know that my work is good and that I can be counted on? Or am I the person that's always looking to be put on someone else's team because no one wants to bother with me? So I think all those things are attributes to a professional brand.
And how can that translate, the good brand or the bad brand, in that transition period of time? How does the impact of that brand show up when they start looking for work after graduation?
I think in a negative sense, it's one of those things that's really tough to turn an on and off switch to a reputation. It's something that you've built over time. And I think a lot of times people have a tendency to believe on even a small level that maybe what some of the things that people see, that there's a piece of truth to them. And so, yeah.
I think overall, the hard thing that students and adults have is a propensity toward coasting. And when you take the lazy approach, and get into that habit, it's hard to develop the habit of excellence. And when you're competing with, I don't want to say few skills, but limited skills according to the marketplace, it's hard to be able to turn it on. And even if you get the job, you're going to have to perform. Kind of like these examples I talked about earlier in running. The people who think that they can just walk into the race and run 26 miles, 385 yards, never having run 5 miles, as I saw happen, are kidding themselves. And I think some of the students may be doing the same thing too.
I completely agree. And like you said, we do have a propensity, I believe, for complacency, for coasting, as you said.
Now, you mentioned faculty advisors as people the students should reach out to as part of their preparation. When should they start connecting with a faculty advisor? What sort of things should they be talking with the advisor about?
I think it's never too early to start talking with a faculty advisor. And I'm not just saying that because
freshman year?
I would say yes, because a student is looking to choose their major. And during those times, even if they have not declared a major during their freshman year, we've got to get the conversation going about what do I want to study while I'm here, and where can those opportunities take me that are afforded to me with the degree options that I'm considering. And so, as Stephen Covey says, you begin with the end in mind. And so, to start looking at, if I choose this particular major, what are some of my options with it? And what are some of the things that we learn as a result of being in this particular major as opposed to this other one? And I believe that those are great conversations to have with faculty from the very beginning.
And I suspect some students are intimidated about reaching out to faculty, fearful that they're going to be thought of as being stupid, immature, ridiculous. That's a fantasy I tell myself. I don't know. I suspect it's not the reality, but I remember my own experience as a freshman trying to talk to faculty and swallowing hard before walking into a professor's office. Little did I suspect that they would have been thrilled to see me.
Exactly. Yes, so I definitely tell students to do some research on the faculty. Go to the faculty roster page on their department's website and read about that faculty member and take a look at where they've been and the kind of research interests that they have, and so that way they have more information to arm themselves with, and so it gives them a platform in which to be able to carry a conversation.
Interesting. So what else should a student do in order to prepare to launch?
I would say definitely start to give some thought to what kind of workplace setting works best for me. So assuming that a student has maybe done an internship and they have an idea of what direction that they're looking to head, I would say it's important I say there are 3 questions that you have to be able to answer in the job search process when you're talking with a recruiter or human resources, someone from another company. The first question I say that you have to be able to answer is, what do you know about the company? It's really amazing how the number of people that in their quest to look for a job, they forget to stop and get to know who the company is that they're hoping to work for. And so it's a great way to impress a recruiter to actually know about the company, know about what they do. What are some of their products and services? Who are some of their competitors? Is there something recent about them that's happened in the news? And so I would definitely encourage people to be able to talk about what is it that they know about the particular company.
Is doing the research on the company as simple as going to Google or a website, or are there other things that you'd suggest that someone do?
I think that's a great starting place. I think again, using your Career Center, they have access to resources that guides, resources like, say, Glassdoor or DICE, things that are specific to your particular industry that you may be interested in. And so I think those are great starting points.
And folks, if you're listening to this show, this is true for the people who've been in the workplace for a long time. You got to go out there and research an employer before the interview, because there are going to be lots of little nuances that you can drop in the course of conversation that will really advantage yourself and help you stick out. So the first thing that you suggest they do is talk about what they know about the company. What's the second thing they should do?
The second thing, I tell them to be able to answer the question, why do you want to work here? What is it about that company that draws you? It should be more than the fact that they have jobs. There are lots of places that have jobs, but that company wants to hear, again, why is it that you want to work at our particular location, our particular company? So it's important to be able to know about the culture of the organization or the company. What are they about? What is it about opportunities there that really resonate with you?
You know, I have a video on YouTube where I suggest to people that the best way to answer that question is by going, why do I want to work here? Why wouldn't I want to work here? This organization has such a great rep, and you go into an enthusiastic response and name drop 2 or 3 different things that you've learned about the firm from your research that allows you to show your excitement. Because one of the things I learned a long time ago is when employers have a choice between candidates, one of the ways that they make the decision between 2 people goes beyond simply who's most qualified into whether or not the person that they are going to extend the offer to will accept the offer. You know, from an employer's perspective, it's embarrassing to put people through the paperwork that an organization has to come up with to extend the job offer, only to have it turned down. So if you show excitement about joining the firm, that can be the tiebreaker between you and your competition that causes them to make the offer to you. And again, that's true whether someone is a student launching or a veteran individual with 25 or 30 years of experience. Thank you. That gave me an opportunity to talk about that video.
Great.
So what's the third point they need to be able to address in the course of the interviewing?
The third point I'd say is extremely crucial. I call it the $1 million question, is why should they hire you? And as simple as that question is, you'd be amazed at the number of people that haven't given the answer to that question very much thought. And so and again, this goes back to taking a look within to see, what is it that I bring to the table? Why is it that this place should hire me in the first place? And to be able to answer what it is that you believe you contribute to the success of that organization or that company.
Now, here's one. That's a question I would struggle with as a student, and again, maybe it's my own experience kicking through with, the political science degree I graduated with. But how might a student answer that question? Why should they choose one person versus another?
I think, honestly, I think a lot of times recruiters are looking to see what kind of sense of self does this person bring. Are they aware of what their skill set is and what it is that they have to offer? Are they do they possess the requisite skills for the position? Do they have leadership skills and experience, maybe in laboratories or group projects, that would be an asset to the company?
Great. And you mentioned two examples of leadership skills. How else might a student, or an adult for that matter, demonstrate leadership skills in the course of an interview?
Great. I would say even talking about activities that maybe you volunteered at. Let's say maybe you volunteer with the March of Dimes, and you're involved on a project with them, whether it be for an annual event, and walking them through the process that these were the number of people that worked with me on this project. Here was our goal, and here's what we accomplished. And because those skills that are involved in even a volunteer capacity directly transfer over to a paid environment as well. You see a lot of the same skills being employed.
I agree with you, and I'm glad you gave that example of the March of Dimes, because I remember interviewing someone some years ago, and one of the things that caused me to be smitten with them is it wasn't just what they said, but how they told the story and the excitement with which they carried themselves as they spoke about their experience of running a particular fundraiser. Now, this was one that involved 5 boroughs of New York and a number of the suburbs, and they were obtaining donations of clothing for homeless individuals in New York. And the person I interviewed told the story with such excitement that it was real easy to get won over by them, just because their passion came through, and how they pulled together this volunteer organization and different places that would open up their buildings for people to come and make donations was a great story that he was able to tell on interviews over and over again and cause him to stand out for quite a few years. Is that the sort of thing that rings true for you as well?
It does, definitely. I know some of the positions I've had over the years have definitely come from roles that I've played in positions where I have volunteered. And so, and I agree with you, the way that you tell the story, a cause that you believe in, something that you give your time and your energy to, and to be able to talk about it in a way that becomes infectious, it has been a selling point for myself as well.
So if I were to summarize, there's a number of things that you've spoken about. And please correct me if I've missed anything that you think is important, or if I misstate some of these points for the audience. But you spoke about how school is a relatively structured environment, and how the student is going to leave the nest and go into a place where, it's not like at 2 o'clock they've got a class. They've got to sort it out for themselves. So there are tools available to the students, including a career center and faculty advisor that they can go to throughout their tenure at the university that can guide them. That the career center will have information, can put them in touch with employers, can do a certain amount of coaching for them to help prepare them for interviewing. It's important as a student and as a professional to build your professional brand. Now, you gave the example as a student of working on projects where you were leading a project versus being the one, this is my language, not yours, the one who's kind of tolerated on the project team and doesn't really contribute much of anything. And gave the example from Stephen Covey of begin with the end in mind, to think about where you're trying to get to and then do the steps to get you to there. And then you provided 3 great questions that someone needs to think about. What do you know about the company? Encouraging people to do some research. and be able to answer the question of why work here? And finally, the million-dollar question is, why hire you? Did I hit on many of your points?
You hit them exactly.
Were there any that I missed that could be useful to the audience?
I just wanted to add one thing in building your professional brand. LinkedIn is a phenomenal tool to really help build your brand professionally and to get connected with colleagues in the industry that you're looking to go into.
And what might a student's LinkedIn profile say about them? What sort of keywords might they include in their LinkedIn profile that might attract attention?
I think definitely their major and some of the requisite skills for people that are in that major. Those things oftentimes come up in keyword searches as people go to look for them.
And GPA, I presume, if it's good, above what number should someone include it or not, or below what number should they not include their GPA?
I think definitely under 3.0, I would not include it.
Great. And are there any other features within LinkedIn other than the profile that would cause a student to get some successes using LinkedIn?
There are two in particular that I'm a big fan of. One is joining groups. Joining groups are great ways to meet other people inside of the industry that you're looking to get into. And the great part I like about it is that you don't have to pay any dues to join those groups. You just have to get let in from the administrator of the group. So let's say that if I want to be a podiatrist, and I go to the group where there are podiatrists, once I'm in the group, then now I have access to everyone else that's in the group of, in this example, those that want to be podiatrists as well, that are currently podiatrists. Those open the doors for potential internship or shadowing opportunities and chances to have conversations with other people in my field. So that's one big thing I'm a fan of. The other is, I can't think of the technical name for it, but I call them small letters of recommendation within LinkedIn. But basically people can write letters of little small 2-3 sentences of support on your behalf that you control. And so if I were to go look you up on LinkedIn, I can also see what other people have said about you. And it helps me as an outsider have a more positive impression of your candidacy.
And of the 2 points that you made, and both are real good, I'll just tell the audience that on LinkedIn you can join as many as 50 groups. And that allows you some great networking opportunities to connect with people who are working in these fields. And LinkedIn has two different versions of these testimonials. One is the text version, and the other one is one where people are asked, what does this person know about, and fill in the blank what the subject is. And I've got to presume that you can trade with some of your friends for these endorsements. That someone with whom you worked in a lab environment might write some positive things about your contribution, and vice versa. You could ask your teachers and professors for advice, for testimonials and endorsements on LinkedIn to help stand out from your competition. And if there was anything that you did that was video recorded, where you looked well, where you spoke well, where it's a good quality video, you can put video on LinkedIn and clearly, as a graduate, stand out from your competition.
Exactly.
Thanks for raising those extra points. I really appreciate it. Anything else that we missed so far?
I think we've covered the gamut.
Great. I just want to make sure. Markel, thank you so much for making time to help the audience, and I'm sure there are many people who are going to be listening to this who will get some great advice to help them launch their career. And folks, at the beginning of today's show, I told you about my experience of running a marathon. And in that case, I was just trying to finish the race. I wasn't trying to win the $100,000 that Mercedes had put up that year. But if I was trying to win that prize, I would certainly have gone out and gotten a coach to help push me, cajole me, teach me, and demand of me, just like the professionals do with the Super Bowl, the World Series, the NBA Finals, the World Cup, and other championship events. Frankly, folks, like these athletes, you need coaching. to help achieve your goals in the fastest amount of time, unless, of course, you want this to drag on and never find that opportunity. If that's the case, don't get a coach. It's really that simple. But at a minimum, you need answers from someone like me, a search professional, a coach with more than 40 years of experience. So I'll tell you point blank, you can find out about my coaching programs at VIPpersonalsearch.com. And if you want to try a shortcut and just get some answers to questions, contact me through liveperson.com, where I'm a job search and career coach. I've helped more than 1,000 people find work and evaluated more than 400,000 in my work as a search professional. So I'll just simply say, don't try to go it alone. Why do you have to hack around in the woods with a machete to figure things out when I'm available to you and I can help you land much more quickly?